हाँ जी, सत श्री अकाल जी साਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। आई होप ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ठीक ठाक ਹੋਵੋਗੇ ਤੇ मैं अपनी बुक ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਰੈਡੀ ਹਾਂ जी 15 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੀ ਰੀਡਿੰਗ ਵਾਸਤੇ। आई होप ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ 15 ਮਿੰਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕੱਢੋਗੇ ਕੁਝ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਰੀਡ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ। ਸੋ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਬਿਨਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇਰੀ ਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਬੁੱਕ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ। From 1985 until 1999, I worked for about 3 hours a day on the only other book I have ever published, Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief. During that time and in the years since, I also taught a course on the material in that book, first at Harvard and now at the University of Toronto. In 2013, observing the rise of YouTube and because of the popularity of some work I had done with TVO, a Canadian public TV station, I decided to film my university and public lectures and place them online. They attracted an increasingly large audience, more than 1 million views by April 2016. The number of views has risen very dramatically since then, up to 18 million as I write this, but that is in part because I became embroiled. The word is embroiled in a political controversy that drew an inordinate amount of attention. Word is inordinate. I think this word has some meaning related with order. That's another story, maybe even another book. I proposed in Maps of Meaning that the great myths and religious stories of the past, particularly those derived from an earlier oral tradition, were moral in their intent rather than descriptive. Thus, they did not concern themselves with what the world was, as a scientist might have it, but with how a human being should act. I suggested that our ancestors portrayed the world as a stage, a drama, instead of a place of objects. I described how I had come to believe that the constituent animals of the world as drama were order and chaos and not material things. Order is where the people around you act according to well understood social norms and remain predictable and cooperative. It's the world of social structure. It's the world of social structure, explored territory and familiarity. The state of order is typically portrayed symbolically, imaginatively as masculine. It's the wise king and the tyrant forever bound together, as a society is simultaneously structure and oppression. Word is oppression. Chaos, by contrast, is where or when something unexpected happens. Chaos emerges in trivial forms. Word is trivial. When you tell a joke at a party with people you think you know, and a silent and embarrassing chill falls over the gathering. Chaos is what emerges more catastrophically when you suddenly find yourself without employment or are betrayed by a lover. As the antithesis of symbolically masculine order, word we have is antithesis of symbolically masculine order, it's presented imaginatively as feminine. A little tough English. As the antithesis of symbolically symbolically masculine order. It's presented imaginatively as feminine. It's the new and unpredictable suddenly emerging in the midst of the commonplace familiar. Its creation and destruction, the source of new things, and the destination of the dead, as nature, as opposed to culture, is simultaneously birth and demise. Order and chaos are the yang and yin. Here we have something like phrase yang and yin. We'll find the meaning of it. Of the famous Taoist symbol, two serpents. Serpent is some kind of reptile like a snake. Had two tail. The yin yang symbol is the second part of the more comprehensive five-part Tajitu, a diagram representing both the original absolute unity and its division into the multiplicity of the observed world. This is discussed in more detail in Rule 2. We'll have a detailed look on this topic in Rule 2. Okay. Order is white, masculine serpent. Chaos, it's black, feminine. Chaos, it's black, feminine counterpart. The black dot in the white and the white in the black indicate the possibility of transformation. Just when things seem secure, the unknown can loom. The word that we have is loom, unexpectedly and large. Conversely, just when everything seems lost, new order can emerge from catastrophe and chaos. For the Taoists, meaning is bound to be on the border between the ever-entwined pair. To walk that border is to stay on the path of life, the divine way, and that's much better than happiness. The literary agent I referred to listen to CBC radio broadcast where I discussed such issues. I left her asking herself deeper questions. She emailed me asking if I had considered writing a book for a general audience. I had previously attempted to produce a more accessible version of Maps of Meaning, which is a very dense book. But I found that the spirit was neither in me during the attempt nor in the resultant manuscript. I think this was because I was imitating my former self, and my previous book, instead of occupying the place between order and chaos and producing something new, I suggested that she watch 4 of the lectures I had done for the TVO program called Big Ideas on my YouTube channel. I thought if she did that, we could have a more informed and thorough discussion about what kind of topics I might address in a more publicly accessible book. She connected me a few weeks later after watching all 4 lectures and discussing them with a colleague. Her interest had been further highlighted, as had her commitment to the project. That was promising and unexpected. I am always surprised when people respond positively to what I am saying, given its seriousness and strange nature. I am amazed I have been allowed, even encouraged, to teach what I taught first in Boston and now in Toronto. I have always thought that if people really noticed what I was teaching there would be hell to pay. You decide for yourself what truth there might be in that concern after reading this book. Smiley. She suggested that I write a guide of sorts to what a person needs to live well. Whatever that might mean, I thought immediately about my Quora list. I had in the meantime written some further thoughts about the rules I had posted. People had responded positively toward those new ideas as well. It seemed to me, therefore, that there might be a nice fit between Quora list and my new agent's ideas. So I sent her the list. She liked it. At about the same time, a friend and former student of mine, the novelist and screenwriter Greg Horowitz, was considering a new book which would become best-selling thriller Orphan X. He liked the rules too. He had Mia, the book's female lead, post a selection of them one by one on her fridge at points in the story where they seemed apropos. Word that we have is apropos. That was another piece of evidence supporting my supposition. Word is supposition of their attractiveness. I suggested to my agent that I write a brief chapter on each of the rules. She agreed, so I write a book proposal, something as much. When I started writing the actual chapters, however, they weren't at all brief. I had much more to say about each rule than I originally envisioned. This was partly because I had spent a very long time researching my book first. I had spent a very long time researching my first book, studying history, mythology, neuroscience, psychoanalysis, child psychology, poetry, and large section of Bible. I read and perhaps even understood much of Milton's Paradise Lost, Goethe's Faust, and Dante's Inferno. I integrated all of that. Yesterday we had a word that was integrate, meaning unite. So here we have integrated all of that. So he united all of that. For better or worse, trying to address a perplexing problem. Perplexing means confusing, and the word that are written here are perplexing. Perplexing problem means confusing problem. I integrated all of that, for better or worse, trying to address a perplexing problem. The reason or reasons for the nuclear standoff of the Cold War. Word that we have is standoff. I couldn't understand how belief system could be so important to people that they were willing to risk the destruction of the world to protect them. I came to realize that shared belief systems made people intelligible. Word that we have is intelligible to one another, and that the system weren't just about belief. People who live by the same code are rendered mutually predictable to one another. They act in keeping with each other's expectations and desire. They can cooperate. They can even compete peacefully because everyone knows what to expect from everyone else. A shared belief system, partly psychological, partly acted out, simplifies everyone in their own eyes and in the eyes of others. Shared beliefs simplify the world as well, because people who know what to expect from one another can act together to tame the world. The word that we have is tame. There is perhaps nothing more important than maintenance of this organization, this simplification. If it's threatened, the great ship of state rocks. It isn't precisely that people will fight for what they believe. They will fight instead to maintain the match between what they believe what they expect and what they desire. They will fight to maintain the match between what they expect and how everyone is acting. It is precisely the maintenance of that match that enables everyone to live together peacefully, predictably and productively. It produces uncertainty and a chaotic mix of intolerable emotions that uncertainty inevitably produces. It reduces uncertainty and the chaotic mix of intolerable emotions that uncertainty inevitably produces. Imagine someone betrayed by a trusted lover. That sacred social contract obtaining between two has been violated. Actions speak louder than words, and an act of betrayal disrupts the fragile and carefully negotiated peace of an intimate relationship. In the aftermath, the word that we have is aftermath. In the aftermath of disloyalty, people are seized by terrible emotions: disgust, contempt for self and traitor, guilt, anxiety, rage and dread. Word is dread. Conflict is inevitable, sometimes with deadly results. Shared belief systems, shared systems of agreed upon conduct and expectation, regulate and control all those powerful forces. It's no wonder that people will fight to protect something that saves them from being possessed by emotions of chaos and terror, and after that, from degeneration into strife and combat. There's more to it too. A shared cultural system stabilizes human interaction. A shared cultural system stabilizes human interaction, but is also a system of value. A hierarchy of value. The word that we have is hierarchy, where some things are given priority and importance and others are not. In the absence of such a system of value, people simply cannot act. In fact, they can't even perceive, because both action and perception require a goal, and a valid goal is, by necessity, something valued. We experience much of our positive emotion in relation to goals. We are not happy, technically speaking, unless we see ourselves progressing. And the very idea of progression implies value. Word is implies. Worse yet is the fact that the meaning of life without positive value is not simply neutral, because we are vulnerable. Word that we have is vulnerable and mortal. Pain and anxiety are an integral part of human existence. We must have something to set against the suffering that is intrinsic to being. Word is intrinsic. I use the term being in part because of my exposure to the ideas of 20th century German philosopher Martin Heidegger. Heidegger tried to distinguish between reality as conceived objectively and the totality of human experience, which he which is his being. Being is what each of us experiences subjectively, personally, and individually, as well as what we each experience jointly with our private thoughts and perceptions. Being is also finally something that is brought into existence by a determinate degree of consequence of our decisions and choices, something shaped by our hypothetically free will, constructed in this manner. Being is ਸੋ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ 15 ਮਿੰਟ ਪੂਰੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੇਜ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, ਮੇਰਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਹੋਇਆ, ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਕਰ ਲਵਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਅਲਾਰਮ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਲਵਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ। Constructed in this manner, being is not something easily and directly reducible to the material and objective, and something that most definitely requires its own, as Heidegger labored for decades to indicate. We must have something to set against the suffering that is intrinsic to being. We must have the meaning inherent in a profound system of value. In a profound system of value, or the horror of existence rapidly becomes paramount. Then nihilism, I believe it is a culture or religion or something like that. Nihilism, because it has ism as a suffix. Nihilism beckons. Word that we have is beckons. With its hopefulness and despair. So no value, no meaning. Between value systems, however, there is the possibility of conflict. Between value systems, however, there is a possibility of conflict. We are thus eternally, word that we have is eternally. We are thus eternally caught between the most diamantine, nice word, diamantine rock and the hardest of places. Loss of group-centered beliefs renders life chaotic. Miserable, intolerable presence of group-centered belief makes conflict with other groups inevitable. Presence of group-centered beliefs makes conflict with other groups inevitable. In the West, we have been withdrawing from our tradition, religion, and even nation-centered cultures, partly to decrease the danger of group conflict. But we are increasingly falling prey to the desperations. But we are increasingly falling prey to the desperations of meaninglessness. But we are increasingly falling prey to the desperation of meaninglessness, and that is no improvement at all. सो हाँ जी, अपनी जी अज की रीडिंग है वो कंप्लीट हो चुकी है 15 मिनट की, तो काफ़ी वधिया यानी कि लिखा हुआ डीप काफ़ी इदा रीडिंग लिखी हुई आ। आई होप तुम सुनिया होगा। जे मैं तुम थोड़ा आइडिया देवां तो इन्होंने जो गल की कि कल्चर की इंपोर्टेंस वैसे दसी हुई आ, कल्चर की बेनिफिट्स ते ड्रॉबैक दसे आ बेसिकली। ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਇਹ ਆ ਕਿ ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਪਰਸਨ ਕਿਸੇ ਹਾਰਡਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਲੰਘਦਾ ਪਿਆ, ਮੀਨਸ ਉਹ ਟਫ ਟਾਈਮਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਨਾ ਲੰਘਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਆ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਕਲਚਰਲ ਵੈਲਿਊਜ਼ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ। ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਨਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਨਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਉਹਦਾ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਆ ਉਹਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਣ ਲੱਗ ਪੈਂਦਾ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸ਼ੇਅਰਡ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਲਚਰਲ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਿਲੀਵਸ ਆ ਨਾ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਪਰਸਨ ਉਹ ਨਾ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਪਰਸਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਮੀਨਿੰਗਲੈਸਨੈਸ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਵੱਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਜਾਣ ਲੱਗ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਉਹਦਾ। ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਘਟ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਜਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਲਚਰਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਥਾਟਸ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਬਿਲੀਫਸ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਜੇ ਉਹ ਘਟਣਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂਟਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਧਰਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਧਰਮ ਕੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਆ ਹਨਾ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਕਲੂਡ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੱਸਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜੇ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਫ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਾ ਮੀਨਿੰਗਲੈਸ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਆ ਫਿਰ। ਤੇ ਸੋ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ। ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਉਹਦਾ ਡਰਾਬੈਕ ਕੀ ਆ। ਡਰਾਬੈਕ ਇਹ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦੋ ਕਲਚਰ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਨਾ, ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕਲਚਰ ਲਗਾ ਲਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ABCD ਨਾ, ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕਲਚਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਗਰੁੱਪ A ਦੀ ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਨਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਬਿਲੀਫ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਿ ਆਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਇਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਕੋਈ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਹੋਰ ਕੁਝ ਮੰਨਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਇਦਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਕਰਾਰ ਹੋਣੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੈਡਿਕਟੇਬਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪੋਸੀਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਦਰਾਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਈਜ਼ੀਲੀ ਪੈ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਝਗੜਾ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਈਜ਼ੀਲੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਦੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਹੈ ਕਲਚਰ ਦੀਆਂ, ਇੱਕ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਦਾ ਡਰਾਬੈਕ ਦੱਸਿਆ। ਮੈਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਬਰੀਫਲੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈ, ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈ। ਥੋਰਲੀ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਹਟਿਆ, ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਵਿਦ ਮੀਨਿੰਗਸ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਵੀ ਨਾਲ ਪਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਆ। ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਹੋਵੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਬੁੱਕ ਆ। ਸੋ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਦੈਟਸ ਆਲ ਫॉर Day 2। ਆਪਾਂ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਕੱਲ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਟਾਈਮ ਚਾਹੇ ਸਵੇਰ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, ਬਟ ਡੇਲੀ। ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਦੀ ਨਾ। ਫੋਰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਕੱਲ ਆਪਾਂ 6 ਵਜੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਸੀ, ਅੱਜ ਆਪਾਂ 4 ਵਜੇ, ਮੈਂ 4 ਨਹੀਂ ਮਤਲਬ 5 ਕਈ ਵਜੇ ਹਲੇ, ਤੇ 5 ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਿਆ। ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੇਨਟੇਨ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਬੁੱਕ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਨਾ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ 5 ਵਜੇ ਹੋਣਾ, ਮਤਲਬ 5 ਵਜੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਇੰਨਾ ਹੋਣਾ, ਕੱਲ ਵੀ 5 ਵਜੇ ਹੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਕੀ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਪੈਂਦਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਾਫੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਨਾ, ਚਾਹੇ ਰੋਟੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਚਾਹੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਨਾ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੰਨ ਲਓ, ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਿਸ਼ਚਿਤ ਪੀਰੀਅਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰੋ ਨਾ, ਜਾਂ ਉਸੇ ਪੀਰੀਅਡ 'ਚ ਕਰੋ, ਨਾ ਲੇਟ ਕਰੋ ਨਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਰੋ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਐਕਸਰਸਾਈਜ਼ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਕੱਲ ਤੋਂ ਮੇਨਟੇਨ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ ਵੀ ਕੱਲ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ 5 ਵਜੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਕੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ 5 ਵਜੇ ਹੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਂ। ਤੇ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਸੋ ਟੇਕ ਕੇਅਰ, ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੱਲ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।